If you live in the northern suburbs or follow footy, you would probably know Essendon. Essendon Station has been around longer than the footy team though, opening in 1860 as the terminus for suburban trains. This line was privately operated for 4 years before being closed and then reopened 7 years later under government operation. This more or less coincided with the opening of the North East Main Line, which went all the way out to Albury and still does today, but not exactly the same, being converted from Victorian 5'3", 1600mm broad gauge to 4' 8.5" 1435mm standard gauge. And the line from Essendon was not chosen to be gauge converted, instead a route via Broadmeadows to Sunshine was chosen, and trains would then go through Tottenham and Dynon on the good lines into the city through the back way. Following 1919, electric service would be commenced in Melbourne, beating Sydney by 10 years and Wellington by 20 years, but Essendon was chosen quickly to be electrified, and this was a huge success. But sprawl was continuing north and electrification was extended to Broadmeadows just 2 years later in 1921, where electric services would continue to terminate for another 80 years. Preceding the North East Main Line being converted to standard gauge, many branches were built to places like Mansfield, Bendigo, Yarrawonga and Bright. There were at least a dozen more branches, but those were some of the popular ones. The double-track broad-gauge corridor to Seymour was kept, and a third standard-gauge track was built parallel to this. And the line beyond Seymour to Albury was converted to standard gauge, and the branches between Seymour and Albury were converted to standard gauge except for the Whitfield branch, which was kept in narrow gauge as an experiment back in the day for cutting costs. Most of these branches just closed after the main line was converted. But the Seymour line remains broad gauge and is the terminus for most regional trains, slightly off the old junction of Evernall, which served as an alternate route to Echuca as well as the Cobram and Toocoomba lines. These lines closed gradually anyway, and all that remains is the line to Shepparton and Albury, which had its upgrades to replace those ensets with the new velocity trains that sacrifice the comfort of a long-distance service and don't deliver on their speed limit. This is deviating a bit from Essendon Station, probably a bit too much, and long-distance trains did stop at Essendon and still do. In Dandenong style, regional trains can offer an express pattern for dodgy suburban commuters, this time skipping even more stations because trains run express from Broadmeadows to Essendon, and Essendon to North Melbourne and then to Southern Cross. The catch is that on the Seymour line, and the trains are mostly 2 or 3 car sprinters, which are even worse than velocity trains, having disused toilets in every carriage and the full inability to move between carriages. The sprinters are unbelievably loud, especially the horn, but occasionally 3-car velocity trains can run, which sadly is a breath of fresh air for the line. Even more rare are 6-car velocity trains, which are needed full time but only used for runs to Shepparton. In 2007, the suburban line was extended to Craigieburn, formerly a small intermediate station in the town of Craigieburn, but Craigieburn became caught in the rapid sprawl of Melbourne and is now a suburb, which made the electrification necessary, and 2 more intermediate stations were built between Broadmeadows and Craigieburn, a former station Somerton being knocked down and rebuilt a little bit further north, renamed Roxburgh Park, and a new station called Coolaroo opening between Roxburgh Park and Broadmeadows to serve the suburbs of Coolaroo and Dallas. Essendon still has its significance as the original terminus of the line, and it's a very busy station. But once a year, trains will terminate at Essendon. When the Moonee Valley races are happening, a lot of people want to get to Moonee Ponds station, but because trains can't terminate at Moonee Ponds, they go to the next station, Essendon, to terminate. Terminating trains gives the seldom used Platform 1 a purpose, but when Platform 2 is being used for terminating trains, Platform 1 will be used for up trains, and Platform 2 will still be used for down trains, but technically Platform 2 is bidirectional. When the races aren't happening, Platform 2 is the up track and Platform 3 is for down services, and Platform 1 remains unused. Moving forward with Essendon, they could probably reinstate some peak time terminating trains, but this is very unlikely. With a lot of people trying to get off at Mooney Ponds, there's not really enough to justify a dedicated service, because a lot of people get on and off at Pascoe Vale, Glenroy, Broadmeadows and Craigieburn, which in my opinion will be better justified with an express service instead of a terminating service. Because the large amounts of ridership at these few stations could justify an appropriate express pattern, but the drawback of this is that running express trains takes up a lot of space on the line, meaning that the gap between the last local train and the express train must be maximised with the departures, and the space could otherwise be used for more local services of consistent frequencies. But high frequencies are heavily restricted on the Craigieburn line because of the city loop. Because it's a single track line, and the Craigieburn line has to share that space with the Upfield and the Sunbury lines. But after the Metro Tunnel opens, the Sunbury line will be taken out, allowing more services to run on the Craigieburn line, and will address some of the overcrowding issues, and probably provide a better service on the line. But while a better service is coming, another good thing is leaving. As of the time of writing, the Northern Group, being Upfield, Craigieburn and Sunbury lines, are 100% run by the Comminge fleet. It's common knowledge among the Melbourne community that Comminge trains are goated. I mean, just listen to the acceleration. But the government has a different opinion. They want the fleet to be replaced with the all-new Extrapolis 2.0 train, which is more or less a hybrid of the Extrapolis Siemens and HCMT trains, with the seat padding being cut in half from all other fleets combined. Extrapolis 2.0 has all the same problems as a Velocity train, already being overhyped and being treated like the saving grace of the Craigieburn line. While it's true that some people might want the change, many could agree that the fleet is perfectly fine as it is. Essendon has a bright future as a busy station as it is. Even as a terminating station or an intermediate station that might occasionally have terminating trains, it will continue to serve the line for what it is. Thanks for watching.